y'all, I just want to do a video on the Biden administration so far and like the highlights to catch everyone up. So because in reality a lot has happened in the past 10-11 months with 10 months that he's been president. So yeah, it's like it's a lot. Yeah, I just want to jump right in with the highlights of the Biden administration. The first 100 days, he signed over 60 executive orders. I believe that is more than Trump, more than Obama, more than Bush, and I think he set a record for the first 100 days going back a long while. So now a lot of these were like rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, going to like stopping the border wall that Trump started, trying to speed up the production and not outsourcing, but the production and like what's it called? Like basically the federal government giving states the COVID shots. That's what he was trying to do, and I believe he used the Defense Production Authority Act or something like that, some Defense Production Act, where usually it was made, I believe, during World War II. It was either World War I or World War II to be like, we are in a world war, like we're in a war. The government needs to take temporary control over things. So they did that, and then Biden did it within his first 100 days because it was like, anyways. Also some big things that he's passed is a $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that was, I think, happened in March, and which I believe every Republican voted against and every Democrat voted in support of it. At least every Republican and every Democrat that was present voted in favor and against. And recently, it was a $1.2 trillion quote-unquote bipartisan infrastructure bill. Now, this had been going on since, I don't know, March. Like, I think it was probably during or after, right after the American Rescue Plan was passed. Biden unveiled this huge infrastructure this huge infrastructure bill, which at first I believe was like supposedly over $6 trillion, and then it got reduced down to 3.5, and then the bills got separated because there was a quote-unquote human infrastructure bill and then an infrastructure bill and a bipartisan infrastructure bill, and the progressives were trying to keep them together so then they would get their quote-unquote human infrastructure bill, which would have free community college for a period of time, free pre-K for a period of time. I think it would raise taxes on corporations. I think it even raised the minimum wage, did some climate things. Like, it was a very progressive agenda, right? And so, and Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema came out against it. It's the whole thing. But anyway, so in the end, the Senate passed, I believe it was like a month before this, but I'd have to look it up. But before, like at least a month ago, if not longer, the Senate passed a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, where I believe like 30 Republicans voted with Democrats in the Senate. In the House, it was 14 Republicans, which is why I'm like, yeah, it was bipartisan in the Senate, but it was not in the House. It was not in the House. But anyways. But yeah, so those were what some people would consider better parts of his administration. I wouldn't, but that's what some people would. That's what his proponents would say. But then his critics would obviously criticize his withdrawing of most of the troops from Afghanistan. Now, in reality, let's back up to a year ago, over a year ago, where Trump had signed with the, I think it was with the either with the Afghani government or the terrorist government, but probably with the Afghanistan government, saying we're going to leave Afghanistan over a period of time up until May, because it was supposed to happen in May of 2021, was when all of the troops were finally supposed to leave. Biden got in office, and immediately, even though that the terrorists in Afghanistan were like, we're going to retaliate if you change the date, he changed the date anyway, and they obviously retaliated. And Biden very hastily and just unorganized took troops out of Afghanistan. Then the terrorists obviously acted, took over Kabul, basically took over the Afghani government in a very short period of time. And so as a reaction, Biden put 6,000 troops back in Afghanistan. And so yeah, we're still there. Nothing has changed. It's just that I believe the number of soldiers has been reduced, kind of. But there's still thousands of troops in Afghanistan. I don't know what they're doing now because... Okay, I need to calm down. I don't know what they're doing now because Kabul and just Afghanistan has been taken over. But anyways, and one of the other big highlights is that the Consumer Price Index, I don't know if it was in October or this month in November, but I believe it was in October, but it may have been in November. Anyways, it reached 6.2%, which means prices this year from 1 year ago have gone up 6.2%, which means inflation has reached 6.2%, which also I looked it up, and supposedly the average inflation rate in the 1970s was 6.8. So when people compare now to the 70s, they're generally correct, because we do have, and we also saw gas prices and energy prices, because the Biden administration hasn't, because also they cut, also one of the first, in his first 100 days, he cut the Keystone Pipeline funding, and so those people lost their jobs, and energy prices and gas prices immediately started soaring. He, I think, has decided to cut off another one. He said I don't remember what state it was, but in that state they had basically oil producing state, and Biden said to stop that. So that's also part. And then when the energy, I think it was the energy, when the energy secretary, it was the person who deals with energy or gas prices basically, they were asked what the US would do to increase production, and she laughed. So as we can tell, I know it's very biased because I already don't like Biden from the start, but basically the administration is not taking it seriously. And we can see that in the fact that the administration hasn't done anything about the consumer price index or inflation being at basically all-time highs for the last 40 years. Soaring gas prices, soaring energy costs, and for your homes. And so, generally all around, for his proponents, they can say they just passed a $1.2 trillion bipartisan, quote unquote, bipartisan infrastructure bill. They passed the American Rescue Plan, which I believe continued giving checks to Americans for a period of time. I don't remember that much else, but I believe it was all temporary. So, love that. Also, back in, it was either this month or I think it was actually it was last month, where a couple of days before the, maybe it was the $1.2 trillion, because they said it was a budget reconciliation bill. That's what it was, because the Senate Republicans wouldn't let the Democrats Like they wouldn't give support for the budget until because they wanted the Democrats to use their reconciliation. Then the Democrats weren't using the reconciliation and called McConnell's bluff because a couple of days before the U.S. government was literally going to run out of money, the Mitch McConnell and a bunch of Republicans signed on to temporarily extend the budget out till December, which means in 1 month, this is gonna, and probably actually when this is being uploaded, it'll probably already start being circulated, or in a couple of weeks it'll be starting to circulate around the news again. But yeah, that was just some highlights. Also one of his executive orders was a reverse Trump's transgender ban in the military. He also, I think, reversed his quote unquote Muslim ban. He did some stuff. Oh, he also made June 19th a federal holiday. I think it was an unpaid one, and it wasn't even a day off. It was just a holiday. But yeah, that was the video, and I'll see you in the next one.